Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something that you might think you already know, the work of Alexander Graham Bell.
Hmm.
But we're not talking about telephones today, at least not directly.
Right.
Instead, we're going to be taking a closer look at his 1876 patent, Improvements in Telegraphy, to understand how Bell went beyond those familiar dots and dashes to revolutionize communication with a concept you might not have heard of: undulatory currents.
It really is fascinating how often innovation comes from tackling these seemingly simple problems.
Yeah.
And in this case, Bell was grappling with this challenge facing telegraphy at the time, which was how to send multiple signals over a single wire without them becoming a jumbled mess.
And you've got Bell's patent right there in front of you.
I do.
So what was the state of telegraphy back then? Why was sending multiple signals such a headache?
Well, as you know, early telegraphy relied on intermittent currents.
Like-
Basically just these short bursts of electricity on, off,
Uh-huh.
to represent the dots and dashes of Morse code. Okay.
The problem was, when you tried to send multiple messages simultaneously using these intermittent currents,
Yeah.
things got messy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's like trying to have multiple conversations by yelling yes and no at different speeds.
Right.
Eventually, it all just blends into an incomprehensible jumble.
Yeah, for sure. So that was a challenge.
And looking at figures 1 through 3 from the patent, it seems like Bell was really aware of this limitation.
Absolutely. He even states that combining multiple intermittent signals on a single wire results in a current that's practically indistinguishable from a continuous one.
Oh, wow.
So his challenge was to find a way to transmit multiple signals without them collapsing into this single useless blur.
So how did he propose to fix this? Was it some revolutionary new technology?
It was revolutionary, but perhaps not in the way that you might expect.
Okay.
Instead of inventing something entirely new, Bell drew inspiration from something pretty familiar, the nature of sound.
Okay, that's interesting. How did sound waves help solve a telegraphy problem?
Well, think about it. When you listen to an orchestra, you can distinguish the individual instruments even though they're all playing at the same time, right?
Right.
That's because each instrument produces sound waves with unique frequencies and amplitudes. So Bell's breakthrough was realizing that he could apply the same principle to electricity.
Interesting.
Instead of using those intermittent currents with their sharp on-off transitions, he envisioned a current that could vary gradually in intensity, just like sound waves.
Okay.
He called it the undulatory current.
So instead of the telegraph line sounding like a chaotic mess of beeps and clicks,
Yeah.
it would be more like a complex musical chord, where each note represents a separate signal
That's a great way to put it.
and remains distinct within the overall wave.
Exactly. Figure 4 in the patent illustrates this beautifully.
Okay.
You can see two distinct sinusoidal waves, each representing a different signal combining to form a more complex wave.
Right.
But even within this complex wave, the individual characteristics of each original signal remain identifiable. It's a crucial insight. Both sound waves and electrical waves can carry multiple distinct frequencies at the same time.
That's really clever. But the big question is, how did he actually create these undulatory currents?
Well, that's where Bell's ingenuity as an inventor really shines through. He outlined several methods in his patent, showcasing his willingness to really experiment.
Right.
So, for example, he describes vibrating a wire, carrying a current near another wire to induce a changing current.
Interesting.
He also explored rotating magnets,
Wow.
even changing the depth. A wire was submerged in mercury to alter the resistance and produce those desired undulations.
It sounds like he was trying everything.
He really was exploring a lot of possibilities,
Yeah.
but there was one approach that he highlighted, which was using a vibrating electromagnet.
Interesting. And you can see a diagram of this in figure 5.
Yeah, figure 5.
Okay, let's take a closer look at that. Help me understand how this vibrating electromagnet actually works.
Okay, so imagine an electromagnet with a steel spring armature, like a small metal lever,
Okay.
positioned near one of its poles.
Uh-huh.
When a current flows through the electromagnet, it magnetizes the armature, attracting it to the pole.
Right.
Now, if you make the armature vibrate, say, by striking it gently,
Right.
it creates a fluctuating magnetic field as it moves closer to and further from the electromagnet.
I think I'm starting to see where this is going. So this fluctuating magnetic field then influences a nearby coil.
Right, precisely. And as that magnetic field changes, it induces an electric current in the coil.
Okay.
But because that magnetic field is changing in a smooth, wave-like manner, thanks to that vibrating armature,
Right.
the current induced in the coil is also undulatory.
So by controlling the vibration of the armature, perhaps by changing how forcefully it's struck, or by altering its resonant frequency,
Yeah.
Bell could control the shape and frequency of the undulatory current he created.
Exactly. It's like playing a musical instrument, but instead of sound waves, he's shaping electrical waves.
This is amazing. But I'm curious, how does this vibrating electromagnet help send multiple signals at once? I'm guessing that's where the multiple frequencies you mentioned come in.
You're on the right track.
Okay.
This is where Bell's system gets even more ingenious.
Okay.
He envisioned using multiple vibrating electromagnets, each tuned to vibrate at a different frequency.
So each electromagnet would produce a unique undulatory current, like a distinct musical note.
Exactly. And these distinct electrical notes could then be combined and sent down the same telegraph wire. Think of it like having multiple conversations happening in the same room, but you can magically tune your ears to only hear the person you want to listen to.
So he essentially invented a way to have multiple private conversations over a single wire,
Yeah,
all thanks to these undulatory currents and vibrating electromagnets.
that's right.
That's incredible. But wait, I thought we were diving into Bell's telegraphy work,
We are.
not the telephone.
Well, that's the beauty of this deep dive. Bell's work on multiplexing telegraph signals, as fascinating as it is, was just a stepping stone to something even more groundbreaking.
Okay.
But to understand how he got there,
Yeah.
we need to delve a bit deeper into how these undulatory currents could be used to transmit not just simple signals, but the full richness of sound itself.
All right. Now you've really got me hooked.
Good.
Let's pick this up next time, and we'll explore how Bell's work on telegraphy laid the foundation for his most famous invention,
Sounds good.
the telephone.
All right.
And we'll see just how far-reaching his vision for audio communication really was.
Okay. So before the break, we were talking about how Bell figured out a way to send multiple signals over a single wire using his ingenious undulatory current.
Right, and we talked about those vibrating electromagnets and that concept of the undulatory current.
Exactly.
I'm dying to know how this all connects to the telephone.
Yeah.
Did he just kind of stumble upon voice transmission while he was tinkering with this telegraph system?
Not quite. Bell was really deeply fascinated by sound and its properties.
Okay.
He wasn't just a tinkerer.
Right.
He was a teacher of the deaf.
Uh-huh.
And he was really obsessed with understanding how sound worked,
Yeah.
how it could be captured
Okay.
and even replicated.
Wow.
So this fascination is really what led him to consider
Yeah.
if his undulatory current could carry more than just those simple telegraph signals.
Mhm.
Could it carry the complexity and the nuances of the human voice?
That's a huge leap to go from like thinking about dots and dashes to the actual sounds of speech.
It is.
How did he even begin to tackle that challenge?
The key was really understanding the relationship between sound waves and electrical waves.
Okay.
And remember how we talked about each instrument in an orchestra producing its own unique sound wave?
Right.
Well, when you speak,
Yeah.
your voice also creates these unique sound waves in the air.
Uh-huh.
Bell's idea was to capture those sound waves and transform them into corresponding electrical undulations.
So instead of a telegraph key making a simple on-off current,
Yeah.
he needed something that could mimic that dynamic, always changing nature of sound waves.
Exactly. And that's where figure 7 of the patent comes in.
Okay.
It shows an early version of his telephone transmitter,
Okay.
which at its heart relies on that same vibrating electromagnet principle that we discussed earlier.
I see. It looks like a cone-shaped device with a diaphragm, like a thin membrane
Yeah,
connected to a vibrating armature.
right.
So someone would speak into the cone, and that would set things in motion, literally.
Yeah.
Walk me through how that works.
Okay, so imagine speaking into that cone.
Uh-huh.
Your voice creates sound wave.
Okay.
They travel through the air,
Yeah.
they hit that diaphragm,
Yeah.
causing it to vibrate.
Right.
And remember that diaphragm is connected to a delicate armature positioned near an electromagnet.
Right.
So as the diaphragm vibrates, it causes that armature to vibrate as well,
Okay.
moving towards and away from the electromagnet.
Just like the setup we discussed before.
That back and forth movement of the armature creates that changing magnetic field,
Right.
which in turn induces an undulatory current in the nearby coil.
Precisely. And the brilliance is that undulatory current
Yeah.
perfectly mirrors the complexities of the original sound waves created by your voice.
Oh.
So you're essentially transforming sound waves into this matching pattern of electrical waves.
And then these electrical waves travel down a wire to a receiver,
Yeah,
which converts those electrical undulations back into audible sound waves.
that's right.
So on the other end of the line, someone would hear your voice,
Mhm.
even though all that was transmitted was electricity.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And Bell's vision wasn't limited to just vocal sounds either.
Okay.
His patent specifically states that his invention can transmit any sound or noise.
Really?
Music, lectures, even the sounds of nature.
Wow.
He saw the potential to capture and share that entire auditory world.
It's incredible to think that all of this stemmed from this simple desire to improve the telegraph.
He wasn't just improving a technology, he was laying the groundwork for an entirely new era of communication. One where we could share not just words, but the richness of sound itself.
It's a really powerful reminder that innovation often happens at the intersection of different fields.
Yeah.
So Bell's deep understanding of sound, combined with his inventive spirit in the world of electrical engineering, led to a breakthrough that's still shaping how we communicate today.
Absolute.
And he didn't stop there.
Oh.
Let's look at his patent claims to see how wide-ranging his vision truly was.
All right, let's unpack those claims.
Okay.
I'm curious to see how he framed this invention, especially since his original focus was on telegraphy,
Right.
not voice transmission.
Yeah.
What exactly did he claim as his own?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of why this patent is so fascinating.
Okay.
Bell recognized the broad applicability of his discoveries. He claimed not only a system of telegraphy using undulatory currents, but also different methods for creating those undulatory currents.
Okay.
So vibrating a wire near another, carrying a current, using rotating magnets, and even changing the resistance in a circuit to generate the desired wave-like fluctuations.
Wow, so it's like he was saying, here's the principle, and here are multiple ways to put it into practice.
Exactly. He even specifically claims apparatus for transmitting sound telegraphically.
Oh, so he was protecting not just this specific device, but the underlying principle of using undulatory currents to transmit information.
Exactly.
Whether it's simple signals or complex sound.
Yeah, remember, in those days, telegraphically meant sending any type of information over a distance using electricity.
Oh, right.
So it's clear that Bell understood the potential of his undulatory current to revolutionize communication in ways he might not have even been able to fully imagine at the time.
It's mind-blowing to think about the impact that Bell's work has had on our world. From simple telegraphs to sophisticated telephones and countless forms of audio communication we enjoy today.
Right.
It all traces back to this patent and his pioneering work with undulatory currents.
It does.
But it also makes you wonder, what if he had stuck solely with his initial goal of improving telegraphy? What if he hadn't pursued the transmission of voice?
Yeah.
Where would we be today?
That's a question worth pondering.
Yeah, it really makes you think, what if instead of voices and music, our world was filled with super fast, super efficient telegraphs?
Right.
All powered by Bell's undulatory currents.
It's an intriguing thought experiment.
Yeah.
Perhaps we would have seen these massive telegraph networks crisscrossing the globe, capable of transmitting complex data at just incredible speeds.
Wow.
Imagine a world where businesses and governments relied on this lightning-fast text-based communication decades before the internet as we know it emerged.
Like a sort of Victorian-era internet, all powered by those elegant undulatory currents.
Exactly.
No Zoom calls or podcasts, though.
Nope.
Just a constant stream of text messages flying back and forth.
Yeah, a very different trajectory for communication technology.
For sure.
It's impossible to say for sure what that world would look like.
Right.
But it really highlights the significance of Bell's decision to pursue the transmission of sound.
It's almost poetic.
Yeah.
Bell, a teacher of the deaf, dedicated to helping people overcome communication barriers,
That's right.
ends up unleashing this technology that allows us to share not just words, but the full spectrum of human expression through sound.
And it all stems from this deep dive into the intricacies of telegraphy,
Yeah.
from tackling the limitations of those intermittent currents to harnessing the power of those undulatory currents.
Absolutely.
Bell's 1876 patent is a testament to the transformative power of a curious mind, always seeking new ways to connect and communicate.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most groundbreaking innovations emerge from tackling these seemingly mundane problems. Who would have thought that a quest to just send more telegraph messages at once would lead to the invention of the telephone?
Yeah.
And lay the foundation for this audio-rich world that we live in today.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to you, our listener,
Yes.
we encourage you to explore the full text of Bell's patent. I
Yeah.
think you'll find it fascinating.
I agree.
It gives you a glimpse into the mind of an inventor on the cusp of a revolution.
As we've seen in this deep dive, even a seemingly technical document like a 19th century patent
Yeah.
can spark these surprising insights and thought-provoking questions.
Absolutely.
So take the plunge and see where your own exploration leads you.
And as you delve into the history of communication technology,
Yeah.
ask yourself, if Bell hadn't pursued the transmission of voice, do you think we'd all be communicating through super fast telegraphs today? What would that world look like? And how would it have shaped the way we live, work, and connect with each other?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Alexander Graham Bell and his undulatory currents.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those innovative sparks flying.